So, Professor Richard Dawkins decided to go mask off on transphobia. This is supremely disappointing for me because I will admit, when I was younger, I actually really looked up to Richard Dawkins. Discovering him when I was a late teenager taught me a lot about, science, the power of science, skepticism. And so seeing him do dumb shit like this is incredibly frustrating. Not just because these beliefs are shitty, but because there are very few people in the scientific community who are willing to back up these super transphobic ideas. And so someone like Richard Dawkins coming out and doing this gives that, horrific movement some more credibility. Now, with that said, this is perhaps the most frustrating part of this. If you listen to Richard Dawkins talk, if you've read any of his books, which I have. Like I said, I was a big fan of his, but now, no, not gonna do that. So again, if you've ever read anything he's ever written, if you've ever heard anything he's ever said, the word science is he says it every fourth word. That's something that I've always liked about him, is that he's been so militant on the importance of science. And it's something that I agree with. The scientific method is an incredible way of uncovering truth, in my opinion. And so what's frustrating here is him taking this stance on, trans people and being transphobic. This spits directly in the face of science, because the overwhelming current consensus among the scientific and medical community is that trans people are real, and just about every aspect of trans people's lives has been well studied and understood. Virtually every peer-reviewed article ever written shows that accepting trans people for who they are is the right thing to do. So seeing someone so obsessed with the truth, so obsessed with science, come out and do shit like this is, I don't know how else to say it, fucking infuriating. We'll watch the video here, but it is so, either it has to call everything he's ever done or said into question, in my opinion. Because either he's the dumbest person to ever live, or he is operating in exceptional levels of bad faith. I am not surprised that, going onto Richard Dawkins' page now, you get recommendations for fucking Jordan Peterson and, J.K. Rowling. And Jordan Peterson again. Yeah, these are the people you're now associated with. You are completely tanking any sort of credibility you had with the scientific community. These transphobic beliefs, these transphobic sentiments are not aligned with the current modern scientific consensus. A consensus that he is constantly at least pretending to care so much about. So that's maybe the worst part. I mean, the worst part is the transphobia. That is, materially harmful to trans people. But the second worst part is, I don't know what you want to call it, the hypocrisy. But anyway, let's watch the video.
Sex really is binary, there's no question about it. You're either male or female, and it's absolutely clear. You can do it on gamete size, you can do it on chromosomes.
Okay, we're going to pause there. No one's saying sex isn't real. Biological sex, the sex you're assigned at birth or whatever, is real. All they're saying is gender expression does not necessarily need to fit in that rigid binary. That's it. That's all. The science supports this. So him bringing this up like it's some sort of incredible point is completely irrelevant. This point that he just brought up is entirely irrelevant to the trans community.
To me, as a biologist, distinctly weird. People can simply declare, I am a woman, though I have a penis.
And so here's the transphobic. No one's declaring that they're a woman. They're saying that their gender identity, the gender that they most closely feel associated with, is not what's typical of the sex that they were assigned at birth. And once again, everything I'm saying is 100% supported by the overwhelming international scientific and medical community. He is just straight up saying, I just don't think trans people exist, period.
Helen, what do you think lies behind this odd distortion of reality?
He's saying what a piece of fucking shit, dude. He's saying trans people's existence is a distortion of reality. That, gender identity not fitting in this rigid binary norm is a distortion of reality. What kind of, boomer level, lead paint chugging brain rot does it take to say something like that, which is why, like, is he this stupid? Genuinely this dumb and ignorant? Or is this just bad faith? I just don't like trans people. I just think trans people are yucky. So I'm saying this shit to sound smart to further harm trans people. I think it's that. I think he's just an old boomer who just finds trans people yucky and wants to, like, be cruel to them in some way. I don't literally think, in any meaningful way that he actually thinks what he is saying is any sort of truth. But it is really frustrating to see.
I would say that when I started to write about it first, I quickly realised that this wasn't treated the same way as anything else. Like, just asking very obvious questions, like, don't you think that if we allow people to self-identify their sex, this will lead to, for example, destroying women's sports or putting rapists in women's jails? People...
Putting rapists? What? Dude. What are you fucking talking about, man? You're pointing to, like, the edgiest of edge cases possible to deny the entirety of trans existence? That's my problem with, like, transphobes. And there are different, like, layers of transphobia, different, like, genres of transphobe, right? You have the, like, I support trans people entirely, but, don't force it upon our kids. Something that's not happening. That's just a dumb dog whistle. You have, I support trans people, but they can't use their bathroom of choice, or they can't play sports. Then there's the, like, I just don't believe trans people exist whatsoever. Those people, like the two you're seeing talking right now, both of these people don't believe trans people exist. And yet they're bringing up these, like, bizarre edge case arguments about, like, a rapist, like an assigned male at birth trans woman rapist going to a woman's prison. Like, that's any sort of meaningful material argument against trans people existing. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because if you were to, further dissect their arguments, they would just say, we don't believe trans people exist. So why are you bringing up these, like, edge cases? If you just don't believe trans people exist in any capacity, why are you bringing up these, like, stupid edge cases that basically never happen or have no real material effect on anyone's fucking lives?
Would turn this back on me and say, you think that trans people are predators, you're a bigot. What we were talking about here was an intensely linguistic movement. Like, there isn't a sense in which a man can become a woman, except linguistically. Like, yes, okay, he can have operations.
There isn't a sense that a man can become a woman except linguistically. That is an incredible take. And again, one that 100% goes against any sort of overwhelming international scientific and medical consensus. No one's, like, again, like, are you talking about biological sex? Yes. Getting bottom surgery doesn't change your biological sex. Nobody thinks that. The vast majority of trans people don't think that. But gender identity is a separate thing entirely. It is a separate feeling to the sex that you were born with. And to just discredit that and to handwave that is very much harmful to trans people in a very material way.
Most trans people don't have any operations, don't take any medicine. But that doesn't change your sex. I guess.
Also, notice the, like, subtle misgendering here.
We were talking about here was an intensely linguistic movement.
Like, that's like, this is like graduate level transphobia. This is like, I'm just desperate to be transphobic. I have to be transphobic. There has to be a logically sound reason for me to be transphobic, because there is no real reason to be transphobic. All transphobes, I think, know that at their core. So you have to, like, make shit up and say, actually, this is a linguistic movement, because it sounds smart. It sounds, more profound than what you're actually saying, which is just, I am a bigot and I think trans people are icky. But notice the casual misgendering.
There isn't a sense in which a man can become a woman, except linguistically. Like, yes, okay, he can have operations.
He can have operations, referring to,
Most trans people don't have.
Referring to, a trans woman. This trans woman can have operations. So yes, you are just being bigoted. You're, like, forget this linguistic thing. Forget about, like, women in sports, as this woman was talking about earlier. Forget about, like, rapists in jail or whatever she was talking about. She's literally misgendering trans people in this statement, in this 60-second clip. She is saying, I just don't believe trans people exist. By misgendering this, theoretical trans person, you are ipso facto just saying, I don't think trans people exist. So that should be what your argument is. But you have to go through these, like, bizarre mental gymnastics to get to any sort of, like, remotely smart sounding excuse to be transphobic, like, oh, it's a linguistic movement or some dumb shit like that. So anyway, that's the clip. It's really sad. It's really fucking pathetic. And you know what's even more pathetic? I took the time to argue with a bunch of these people, okay? Now, I haven't done this in like 10, how old am I? 10-ish years, okay? Back at when I was a Richard Dawkins admirer, when I, late teens discovered my, atheism or whatever, like I was like the most fucking annoying, deranged, debate pervert, edgy atheist guy back then. And so I would endlessly argue with religious people, and I haven't done that in like 10 years, okay? But for whatever fucking reason, I decided to do that in these QRTs. Note, if you're a young person, don't do it. It accomplishes nothing. The people who already are not transphobic or whatever in this specific context are going to remain not transphobic. Nothing they would read here would change that. And vice versa. Nothing I could say, as we're going to find out, no matter how clear, reasonable I am, providing whatever evidence they need, it doesn't matter. You will never convince a single person in this way. So let's get into these QRTs real quick. Look, there's your boy. So, damn, fully mask off on the transphobia. Genuinely sad to see it from someone I used to respect as an intellectual, when I was a teenager anyway. Regardless, nobody is denying biological sex is real. Gender, however, is cultural. Expected better from Dawkins, but not surprised. So I said, casual misgendering of trans women from the other host as well. Come the fuck on, dude. Why devote so much time and energy to being cruel to this particular part of the population? Truly, what have trans people done to deserve this? Boom, ratioed. I'm never calling a strapping bloke a woman. It's a big fat lie. Nice. You know better than the overwhelming international scientific and medical consensus. Hope you publish your research soon. Stop being cruel to trans people. It's needless and it is fucking killing them. I don't buy into emotional manipulation. That's so funny to me. Me stating the literal fact that transphobia is killing trans people is emotional manipulation. So I decided to hit him with a systemic review of all peer-reviewed studies in English between 1991 and 2017 that assess the effect of gender transition on the trans person's well-being. The review found that 91% of studies showed that transition improves well-being. So I hit him with every peer-reviewed study in the last 30 years. And of course, he did not reply to that because how could you? Literally, I don't know how you can reply to this other than saying, I literally don't agree with the overwhelming international scientific consensus. I will agree with the overwhelming international scientific consensus on 99.999998% of topics, except transphobia and climate change. Those two, I refuse to accept. Everything else, how my car works, how my fucking shower works, how my clothes are made, I trust the scientists, but transgenderism and climate change are my hard lines. They are wrong about those two things. Gender, however, is cultural. Of course it is. That's why this culture-bound phenomenon mirrors the nation in which it arises. That's why there are no Zenith outside Oman or the, I don't know, I'm going to butcher this, outside the Samoan culture. Men can never become women. You can never change sex. And again, they think this is some kind of like dunk, like this you can never change sex thing. It's fucking meaningless. Who the fuck is arguing that you can change your sex? Yes, humans aren't frogs. All we're saying is that recognizing people's preferred gender identity is a great way to keep them safe and alive at absolutely zero cost to you. There's just no reason to be cruel to trans people. Now, you look at these, you see 13 comments underneath here. If you think any of these comments address anything that I just said there, you'd be right. Just kidding. You'd be wrong. So she's quoting me, recognizing someone's preferred gender identity is a great way to keep them alive and safe at absolutely zero cost to you. 1. Citation needed. 2. Emotional manipulation through coercive control. Do this or I'll harm myself. 3. The cost is rationality, truth, and a sane society. This is like an insane ratio, right? I got 5 likes for my comment here. She got 52 for this incredible piece of work. So I give her a citation. This study that was done, Chosen name use is linked to reduced depressive symptoms, suicidal ideation, and suicidal behavior among transgender youth, a peer-reviewed study. So I gave her citation that recognizing someone's preferred gender identity is a great way to keep them alive at zero cost to you. Boom. Gave you exactly what you requested. And number 2, this isn't coercion, it's a material fact about the impact of discrimination. No trans person is saying, accept me or I will fucking, harm myself. No one's doing that. That's not even implicit in the way trans people operate, or like when trans people harm themselves. This isn't even implicit. It's just something that happens when you horrifically discriminate against people like this. And number 3, about rationality, truth, and sane society. Recognizing the complexity of sex and gender is the rational truth. The overwhelming consensus in the scientific and medical community disagrees with you. So Robbie Travers did not leave this conversation. She kept liking all the comments from people being shitty and transphobic. But she did not reply to me here. Someone did reply to me, who eventually blocked me, which I find hilarious and kind of pathetic. Like, I don't remember the exact tweet, and I probably shouldn't show it because would that be like evading Twitter's, blocking policy? I don't know. But it basically said, it pointed to the study and was like, wow, 129, the data came from 129 transgender people, implying that was a small sample size. So I replied, each study contributes valuable insights. Scientific understanding builds over time with multiple studies. Now, this rhetoric about scientific understanding, I can't stress enough, a lot of this came from Richard Dawkins, which is why it's so frustrating that, he's willing to completely disregard everything he has ever said about trusting scientific consensus. Russell et al.'s findings are consistent with virtually all scientific studies, all pointing to the importance of respecting gender identity. And once again, I linked to that Cornell or that, systemic overview about the various studies. And so he then replied here again, which he blocked me. He basically found one of these studies, maybe he probably clicked the first one, and I think it said that our findings were neutral or whatever, that we didn't find any sort of effect on, using a person's preferred pronouns or whatever, or gender transitioning affecting transgender well-being. And so if you read the overview here, they did find that 7% of their studies reported mixed or null findings. They also found that 0% studies concluded that gender transition causes overall harm. And of course, 93% of the studies found that gender transition improves the overall well-being of transgender people. So he found one of those 7% articles, one of the 4 articles in this study, the 7%, that said, we found mixed findings. And he posted that like it's some sort of own, dude. So I said, yes, in the opening paragraph of the article, it says that 7% of the studies reported mixed or null findings. You found one. Congrats. And then I told him, 0% of the studies found that transitioning causes harm. 93 found that transitioning is beneficial for trans people. Please read carefully. And he stopped replying and fucking blocked me, dude. It's just I've never done that before where I got so thoroughly fucking owned that I got blocked. That's insane. Transphobia, laughing clown emojis. Transphobia, a non-existent bigotry based on a non-existent fear of an incoherent group that claims the non-existent possibility of changing their sex. Again, boom, mega ratio, 50-1. This is insane to me. We're talking about human beings who have done nothing to deserve this hate and vitriol. This rhetoric is fucking killing them, and all you do is point and laugh. They're just asking for the tiniest bit of humanity and respect, and you spit in their face. They're just asking for the tiniest bit of humanity. Where are you located? Because in many Western countries, this request ballooned into nonstop pride parades of mega proportions. What? Rhetoric is killing them? Yes, dude! Oh my fucking god! I don't know what to tell you if you don't think that, rhetoric can cause people to harm themselves. I love this guy. Sex and gender were the same when I was growing up. Since when was gender's definition changed? I love this, boomer-ass shit, dude. It was exactly the same when I was growing up. So I said, language, look at this fucking ratio, dude. I love it. Language evolves as our understanding grows. Science now differentiates sex, biological traits, and gender, identity/expression. This change reflects our improved understanding of human diversity. It's not a revision, but an evolution towards a clearer understanding of reality. Oldies like me understand sex and gender to mean the same thing. No wonder people are confused about the trans debate. So I said, my mistake. Science and language can't evolve over time with new information. Everything was perfect in the past, and there's no reason to assume otherwise. Oldies like you also didn't use smartphones until scientists made those, so you should probably toss yours. Your mistake is that your top-down, fascistic view of the world is somehow better? Bro, like, me saying trans people exist is fascistic? The new religion you worship, I worship a religion? And force on others through violence. What? Dude. Are, like, cis people, like, kissing themselves because trans people exist? The only violence, the only, like, structural violence happening is your rhetoric is going to cause countless trans people to harm themselves, dude. Nope, I know science and language evolve. No need to be sarcastic, cunt. I was being a sarcastic cunt. Oh, sorry, you're just so dead set on the idea that our understanding of gender/sex can't change. I wonder why it's this topic in particular that you refuse to accept the scientific consensus on then, if you apparently understand the nature of the scientific method. So my point here is that he understands that science and language evolve, but refuses to accept that, like, the understanding of sex and gender could possibly evolve too. In reply to this, he hits me with the Matt Walsh, what is a woman? Boom. Wrecked. Biologically, it's typically, so it doesn't even matter what I said. He goes, anyone can identify as a woman. No, dude, a woman is an adult human female and no man can never be one. I agree. I 100% agree that no man can ever be a woman. It's just that trans women are women. Back when I was a teenager, more religious, younger, pre-discovering Richard Dawkins even, I was very transphobic. My parents were transphobic. That's what they taught me. And it took me learning new things to become not transphobic, and being open to learning. And those are things that don't come easily. You know, learning isn't easy. Anyone who's been to school understands that. And the desire to learn isn't easy either. That doesn't come 100% easily or naturally either, which is what I mean. Like, I could talk as much as possible about overwhelming international scientific consensus, and it won't fucking matter to Carmel over here. It doesn't matter that, like, literally every scientist alive, for the most part, is saying, you know, the reality about gender and sex. It won't matter. He will, like I said, he will trust scientists on every other aspect of his life, except when it comes to gender and sex, and of course, climate change. Anyway, I think that's all I have to say about that. I'm mostly just bummed that Richard Dawkins, like, in the last, like, few years, he's come more mask off on a lot of topics. He's been more of a bigger piece of shit than he used to be, I think. But he was always kind of a piece of shit. The other one, for me, coincidentally, is Christopher Hitchens. That's another guy who I used to greatly admire. I have his book upstairs, too. My girlfriend actually has a signed God Delusion that was upstairs, and I wanted to bring it down, but I couldn't find it. So yeah, this is a person who mattered to me. Here's a conversation with H. Joyce Gender on the poetry of reality, tackling the influence of gender ideology on society. Dog, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? This shit doesn't fucking matter. The influence of gender ideology on society, dude? The ideological lens and its implications for scientific facts? Bro, science disagrees with you. The overwhelming scientific consensus fucking disagrees with you. 52 minutes of just, like, how many words can you say we find trans people icky and we don't think they should exist? H. Joyce Gender? Trans. Okay, so she wrote the book on transphobia. Okay, that makes sense. Oh my fucking god, dude. What is a woman? Yeah, that should tell you everything you need to know about Helen Joyce. Like, which is why, like, dude, the fact that Richard Dawkins is willing to talk to such a, like, clearly enormous, bigoted piece of shit, like, shreds any and all credibility he should have with the scientific community. Author of the book about gender ID ideology, show me the third gamey and we can talk. Fuck off, dude. Oh my god. Every tweet is just being transphobic. Jesus fucking Christ. Every tweet is like, this is just today, dude. Jesus Christ. Oh my fucking god. It is living like rent-free in this dumbass's brain. It is that SpongeBob meme where he's in like the fucking vest and there's like, you know, transgender flag all over the walls. This is fucking pathetic, dude. And sad that you're willing to give so much of your time to just be shitty to a marginalized community that is having that is doing nothing wrong, that just want to like live their lives, that are doing nothing to harm you in any material way. This is sad, dude. Fucking sad.